They kicked Earthlings out. Now they're begging for our return. The galaxy had never meant to make an enemy of Earth. When humans first appeared beyond their home system, they did not arrive with weapons raised or fleets blazing through space. They arrived quietly. One ship at a time. Exploration vessels patched together from hard learning and old ambition. They asked for docking permission. They offered labor. They listened more than they spoke. Other species found them strange. Humans worked too long without rest. They learned foreign systems faster than expected. They asked questions that cut too deep into how things truly worked. Where alien engineers followed tradition and fixed only what manuals allowed, humans experimented. They adjusted. They improved. At first, this was welcomed. Human technicians repaired ancient stations that had been failing for centuries. Human pilots charted unstable regions of space that other species avoided. Human negotiators solved trade disputes by understanding both sides instead of forcing authority. They were everywhere, yet nowhere powerful. That was the problem. The Galactic Council had been built on hierarchy, ancient races at the top, younger ones beneath. Order was maintained by keeping knowledge slow and progress controlled. Humans did not fit into that system. They learned too fast and shared too freely. Whispers began spreading through council chambers. If humans stayed long enough, they would demand votes. If they gained influence, they would rewrite rules. If they understood galactic infrastructure fully, they would no longer be replaceable. Fear followed gratitude. New regulations were introduced quietly. Humans were restricted from certain databases. Their contracts were shortened. Access to core trade hubs required special approval that was rarely granted. Humans noticed, but they did not protest. They adapted. They trained each other, stored knowledge in ways no one could block, built private networks that bypassed official systems. They continued working, even as doors slowly closed around them. That only made the council more afraid. Then came the announcement. It was broadcast across known space, translated into thousands of languages. The words were polite, calm, official. Due to cultural incompatibility and security concerns, all human citizens are to withdraw from council-controlled space within one standard cycle. Failure to comply will result in enforcement actions. No accusations, no apologies, just exile. Across stations and colonies, humans stopped working. Tools were set down, consoles powered off. Entire maintenance crews walked away from systems they had kept alive for decades. Aliens laughed at first. They believed humans were bluffing, that they would beg to stay. That fear would break them. It did not. Human ships departed in silence, not in panic, not in anger. They left methodically. They dismantled personal equipment, cleared living quarters, returned borrowed materials. Some even left detailed notes explaining how systems worked. Most of those notes were ignored. Within months, the last human vessel crossed the border and vanished into deep space. The council declared the matter resolved. Celebrations followed. Younger races were told the galaxy was now stable again, no unpredictable species. No rapid change, control restored. On Earth, the return was not chaotic, it was focused. Humanity had expected resistance one day, maybe not exile, but rejection had always been likely. What surprised the galaxy was how prepared humans were to come home. Ships returned carrying more than people. They brought experience, knowledge, and understanding of alien technology far beyond what the Council realized. Engineers shared designs openly. Scientists compared notes without political barriers. Military leaders studied alien tactics without hostility, only caution. Old rivalries between Earth nations faded under a simple truth. Out there, humans were one people. If they were to survive alone, they would stay that way. Factories were repurposed. Orbital stations expanded. Old technologies were redesigned using lessons learned from alien systems. Humans did not copy, they improved. They built machines meant to last, not to impress councils. Meanwhile, far from Earth, small failures began to appear. A trade station lost power for 6 minutes. No one panicked. Automated backups kicked in. A mining colony reported irregular gravity fluctuations. Engineers blamed age. A jump gate misaligned by a fraction of a degree. Traffic slowed but continued. These things had happened before. What had not happened before was how quickly they spread. Within weeks, failures multiplied. Systems once stable for centuries behaved unpredictably. Repairs took longer. Replacement parts did not fit as expected. Software updates caused new errors instead of fixing old ones. Alien engineers worked tirelessly. They followed protocols, consulted manuals, performed rituals of maintenance passed down through generations. Nothing worked. The truth was uncomfortable and slow to surface. Most galactic infrastructure was not truly understood by those using it. It had been inherited from older civilizations or designed with assumptions no longer questioned. Humans had noticed those flaws, quietly compensated for them, adjusted variables manually. Balanced systems that should not have been stable. When humans left, those invisible corrections left with them. Still, the Council refused to connect the problem to humanity, admitting that would mean admitting dependence. Instead, they blamed sabotage, internal politics. Aging technology. Then an entire orbital habitat lost life support for 3 hours. Thousands died. Panic spread faster than any broadcast. Emergency sessions were called. Data was reviewed. For the first time, Council analysts compared current system performance to historical records from when humans were present. The difference was undeniable. Stability had dropped sharply after humanity's removal. That realization terrified the Council more than any human fleet ever could. Back on Earth, humans watched the reports without satisfaction. There was no cheering, no revenge, only confirmation. They had not been valued when they were present. Now their absence spoke louder than any demand. Earth continued building. Ships grew larger, but not for war. They were designed for endurance, self-sufficiency, long-term operations without external support. Human engineers assumed no one would come to help them if something failed. That assumption shaped everything. Deep space sensors detected alien probes hovering at the edge of the solar system. They did not approach. They did not transmit. Humans let them watch. Weeks passed. Then one probe sent a message. It was not a threat, not an order. It was a request for communication. Human leadership debated briefly, then agreed. A single human ship moved to meet the probe. No weapons powered, no escort, just confidence. The probe transmitted a visual feed. An alien figure appeared, posture lowered in a gesture meant to show humility. The message was simple. The galaxy was failing, and they did not know how to fix it without humans. On Earth, no one celebrated. They remembered how easily they had been pushed out. How calmly the Council had erased their presence. How useful they had been considered, but never equal. Humanity listened, and said nothing yet, because for the first time the galaxy needed Earth more than Earth needed the galaxy. And that changed everything. The silence from Earth frightened the galaxy more than any refusal could have. After the first message was sent, weeks passed with no reply. Alien probes remained at the edge of the solar system, observing quietly. They recorded human ship traffic, orbital construction, and the steady movement of vessels that showed no sign of panic or weakness. Earth did not rush. Earth did not threaten. Earth continued as if the galaxy did not exist. Inside Council space, things grew worse. Power failures were no longer isolated. Entire sectors experienced rolling blackouts. Stations that once housed millions were forced to evacuate sections to conserve energy. Medical facilities struggled as life support systems became unreliable. Trade slowed to a crawl, and with it came unrest. Alien leaders demanded answers. Emergency teams were sent from world to world, but every solution failed in the same way. A system would stabilize briefly, then collapse somewhere else. Engineers realized too late that many systems were linked in ways no one had fully mapped. Humans had known. Humans had compensated. Without them, the web unraveled. Some council members argued that humans had sabotaged systems before leaving. Others claimed humans had deliberately designed hidden dependencies. Investigations proved both claims false. There was no sabotage, no traps. The systems failed because humans had been the ones holding them together. A second message was sent to Earth. This one carried more urgency. It requested talks, not negotiations, talks. Again, Earth did not respond. On Earth, humanity watched the situation closely. Satellites tracked alien movements. Analysts studied data leaks and public broadcasts. The suffering was real. Civilian populations were paying the price for decisions made by fearful leaders. Still, Earth did not rush. Human leaders understood something the Council did not. If they returned too quickly, nothing would change. The galaxy would see them as tools again. Useful hands, not equal voices. Humanity waited for the galaxy to understand the cost of exclusion. That understanding came when a major jump network collapsed. The network connected dozens of systems. When it failed, ships were stranded mid-route. Some emerged far from their intended destinations. Others never emerged at all. Trade froze instantly. Panic followed. For the first time in galactic history, the Council broadcast a public apology. They admitted mistakes. They admitted fear. They admitted that removing humanity had been wrong. The apology reached Earth within minutes. This time Earth responded. The reply was short and calm. Humanity acknowledged the message. They agreed to send observers, no engineers, no repair teams, only witnesses. A single human vessel crossed into Council space. Alien ships escorted it nervously, unsure what to expect. The human ship did not attempt to dominate sensors or disrupt communications. It simply followed, silent and steady. At the first failing station, human observers walked through corridors filled with flickering lights and exhausted workers. They asked questions, they listened, they took notes. They did not fix anything. Alien officials grew impatient. Lives were at risk. Systems were failing faster than before. The human observers explained their position clearly. Humans would not act without authority and trust. They would not work under temporary contracts. They would not be blamed if things went wrong while being denied real control. This was not revenge, it was clarity. The observers returned to Earth with their findings. Days later, the Council sent a formal delegation to Earth. This time, they did not stop at the edge of the system. They requested permission to land. Earth granted it. The alien delegation arrived expecting a divided world, competing governments, conflicting demands. What they found was coordination, a unified planetary council representing humanity as a whole. The meeting lasted for days. Humans spoke openly. They explained how often they had warned of system weaknesses, how often their recommendations had been ignored because they came from a younger species, how exclusion had not protected the galaxy but weakened it. The aliens listened in silence. Then they asked what humans wanted. The answer was simple: equality, shared authority, mutual responsibility. Humans would help repair the galaxy, but only as full partners. They would have access to all systems they were expected to maintain. Decisions affecting shared infrastructure would require human approval. No species would be removed or restricted without collective agreement. The conditions shocked the delegation. Some protested. Others argued the Council would never accept such terms. Humanity did not argue back. They stated a final truth: Earth was stable. Human systems were growing stronger every day. Humanity could survive alone. The galaxy, however, could not recover without humans. The delegation returned to Council space carrying that message. Debate erupted across the galaxy. Some leaders resisted fiercely. They feared losing dominance more than collapse. Others saw reality clearly. Without humans, their civilizations would fall apart piece by piece. Public pressure mounted as citizens learned the truth. They demanded solutions. They demanded help. At last, the Council voted. By a narrow margin, they accepted humanity's terms. The announcement was broadcast everywhere. Humans were invited back, not as workers, not as guests, but as partners. Earth responded immediately. This time, fleets were sent. Human ships entered Council space in organized groups: engineering vessels, medical ships, patrol craft designed to stabilize regions suffering from piracy and chaos. The difference was visible at once. Human teams did not rush blindly. They mapped systems fully. They rewrote outdated protocols. They trained alien crews instead of replacing them. Repairs that once took weeks were completed in days. Stability returned gradually, then steadily. Alien citizens watched in disbelief as lights stayed on. Transit routes reopened. Food shipments resumed. Fear eased, but something else changed as well. Humans did not take credit. They documented everything, shared knowledge openly, encouraged joint teams. They treated alien engineers as equals, not subordinates. That behavior spread. Species that had once dismissed humanity began adopting human methods. Transparency, redundancy, adaptability. The galaxy began to heal. Not everyone was pleased. Certain Council factions watched humanity's influence grow with alarm. Humans were respected. Trusted, listened to. That frightened those who had ruled through control and secrecy. Quiet plans formed in shadowed chambers. They believed they could use humans to fix the galaxy, then remove them again once stability returned. They underestimated one thing. Humans had learned their lesson. Earth no longer sent help without safeguards. Every system repaired was linked to shared oversight. Every agreement included fail-safes that prevented quiet exclusion. The galaxy had asked for humanity's return. Humanity made sure it would never be easy to remove them again. And as stability spread from system to system, one truth became clear to everyone watching. Humans were no longer outsiders trying to belong. They were the backbone holding the galaxy together. And this time the galaxy knew it. The galaxy did not change overnight, but the shift was impossible to ignore. Where humans worked, systems stayed stable. Where they trained others, knowledge spread instead of disappearing into archives. For the first time in centuries, infrastructure was not just maintained, but understood by those using it. That understanding frightened the old powers. Within council chambers, influence was slipping. Decisions once made behind closed doors now required transparency. Human representatives asked questions no one was used to answering. They demanded data, not tradition, proof, not authority. Many younger species welcomed this. They had lived under quiet control for generations, following rules they had never helped write. Humans gave them a voice simply by insisting everyone be heard. But some council factions saw only danger. They believed the galaxy had survived for thousands of cycles before humans arrived. They believed it could do so again. All it needed was time and the chance to push humans aside once stability returned. So they planned carefully. The first move was subtle. Funding for joint human-alien projects was delayed. Bureaucratic obstacles appeared. Access to certain systems was restricted again, justified as security reviews. Humans noticed immediately. They did not confront the council publicly. Instead, they documented everything. Delays, denials, quiet attempts to isolate human teams from critical infrastructure. Then came the accident. A major energy hub suffered a cascade failure. Backup systems did not engage properly. Entire regions went dark. Millions were affected, and several stations had to be evacuated. Council media blamed a software conflict introduced during recent upgrades. The implication was clear, even if unspoken. Human involvement. Human analysts reviewed the data within hours. The failure was not random. Safeguards had been manually disabled. Someone had wanted the hub to fail. Evidence pointed inward. Instead of exposing it immediately, humans waited. They deployed emergency teams anyway. Power was restored. Damage was contained. Lives were saved. Only then did humans act. They presented their findings to the full council in a public session. No accusations, just data. Logs showing disabled safety layers. Authorization codes traced to a small but influential council faction. The chamber fell silent. For the first time, the galaxy saw an attempted betrayal clearly, without doubt. The accused faction denied it, but the proof was undeniable. They had hoped to cause just enough failure to justify removing human oversight. Instead, they had revealed themselves. The council removed them from power within days. That moment marked a turning point. Trust in humanity solidified, not because humans were powerful, but because they were fair. They could have used the failure to seize control. They did not. They chose stability over dominance. Across the galaxy, public opinion shifted decisively. Humans were no longer seen as a necessary risk. They were seen as protectors of balance. With resistance weakened, deeper changes began. Joint councils formed at regional levels. Humans helped redesign governance systems to be resilient, not rigid. Emergency authority rotated. Knowledge access was shared instead of hoarded. The galaxy grew faster than it ever had under strict hierarchy. Exploration resumed beyond known space. Human-designed ships led the way, built for endurance and adaptability. Mixed crews became common. Old prejudices faded as species learned to rely on each other. Yet humanity did not relax. Earth maintained independence. Human fleets answered to Earth first, not the Council. Cooperation was chosen, not enforced. That distinction mattered. Deep within Council archives, humans uncovered something unsettling. Many galactic systems were built atop remnants of a long-dead civilization. Their technology was powerful but unstable, never meant to last this long. Humans realized the truth. The galaxy had been surviving on borrowed time. Without intervention, total collapse was inevitable within centuries. Humans had unknowingly delayed it. Now they faced a choice. Fix everything and bind the galaxy's future to humanity, or walk away and let history repeat itself. Earth debated fiercely. Some argued humanity had already done enough, that the galaxy's problems were not theirs to solve forever. Others believed walking away would doom trillions who had learned to trust humans. In the end, humanity chose a third path. They would rebuild the foundation, but not alone. Humans proposed a long-term project, a complete redesign of galactic infrastructure, new energy networks, new jump systems, built to be understood, repaired, and governed collectively. The scale was unprecedented. The Council hesitated. The cost would be enormous. The effort would take generations. Human representatives spoke calmly. The cost of doing nothing would be extinction. Faced with that truth, the galaxy agreed. Construction began across hundreds of systems. Humans shared every design openly. They trained others not just to use the systems, but to improve them. Power became decentralized. No single species could control it all. As the new networks came online, something unexpected happened. Human influence stopped growing. Not because humans lost power, but because others gained it. That was humanity's true strength. They did not seek to rule the galaxy. They sought to make it stable enough that no ruler was needed. Some still feared them, but fear slowly gave way to respect. Years passed. Then decades. Children grew up in a galaxy where humans had always been there, not as outsiders, but as equals. Old council myths faded into history lessons. Earth remained watchful. They remembered exile. They remembered how easily trust had been broken once. Safeguards stayed in place. Agreements were enforced. Humanity never forgot that cooperation was fragile, and somewhere deep in uncharted space, sensors picked up something new. Signals, old, powerful, artificial, not from the dead civilization whose ruins powered the galaxy, but from something else, something watching. Human analysts studied the data in silence. Whatever was out there had seen the galaxy nearly collapse, and it had seen who saved it. For the first time since exile, humanity felt something close to unease. Not because the galaxy might turn against them again, but because the next challenge would not be political. It would be existential. And when that moment came, the galaxy would look to humans once more, not as beggars, but as allies standing at the edge of the unknown. The signals did not announce themselves with threat or greeting. They simply existed. At first, only a few deep space sensors picked them up, faint pulses repeating at irregular intervals, buried beneath cosmic noise. Older council analysts dismissed them as echoes from ancient ruins or natural phenomena. Humans did not. Human pattern specialists noticed something wrong. The signals adjusted, not randomly, but in response to observation. When sensors recalibrated, the signals shifted frequency. When probes moved closer, the pulses slowed. Something was aware of being watched. Earth was informed immediately. Human leadership ordered silence. No broadcasts, no attempts at contact. Observation only. The galaxy did not need panic, and humanity had learned that fear spread faster than truth. Joint research teams were assembled, but humans led the analysis. Not because they demanded it, but because everyone else deferred without argument. That alone showed how much the galaxy had changed. As data accumulated, a disturbing picture formed. The signals originated far beyond known space from regions believed empty. They were not powerful, but they were precise, artificial, purposeful, and old. Older than the dead civilization whose remnants powered much of the galaxy. That fact unsettled everyone. If something had existed before the ancient builders, then the galaxy's history was incomplete. Worse, the collapse humans had prevented might not have been an accident. It might have been a cycle. Some council members suggested secrecy, others argued for immediate preparation. A few feared that humans would use the threat to justify permanent dominance. Humans surprised them. They shared everything, every data set, every theory, every uncertainty. They refused to let fear become leverage. Human scientists proposed a cautious plan: expand sensor networks, strengthen defenses quietly, continue rebuilding infrastructure so the galaxy would be resilient no matter what came. No declarations, no enemy named. Preparation without provocation. The galaxy agreed. As years passed, the signals grew stronger, more frequent. They began to resolve into patterns that resembled communication, but not in any language known. Mathematical structures hinted at intelligence, but motives remained unclear. Then something changed. A distant system went dark, not failed, not damaged, gone. Stars still burned, but stations vanished. Planets showed signs of recent activity, then nothing, no debris. No radiation spikes, just absence. Fear swept through the galaxy. This time, humans did not wait. Human fleets mobilized not to attack but to protect key regions. Defensive platforms were activated across rebuilt networks. Evacuation plans were shared openly with all species. There was no command from Earth ordering obedience. There was trust. Scouts sent to the vanished system found traces of technology far beyond anything known. Clean, efficient, silent. Whatever had done this did not struggle, it had harvested. Human analysts reached a grim conclusion. The entity was not a conqueror in the traditional sense. It did not negotiate. It did not dominate territory. It optimized. Civilizations that reached a certain level of complexity were evaluated. Those deemed inefficient were removed. Their resources recycled. The ancient builders had known this. Their unstable systems were desperate attempts to grow faster than the cycle. They had failed. Humanity understood something else. The galaxy had survived this long only because it had been fragmented, inefficient, divided. Unity had nearly destroyed it before. Now unity had returned, and something out there had noticed. Emergency council sessions were held daily. Panic voices grew louder. Some demanded immediate surrender signals. Others wanted preemptive strikes despite having no idea how. Humans spoke last. They did not promise victory. They did not downplay the threat. They stated facts. The entity reacted to efficiency, predictability, static systems. So humanity proposed something counterintuitive: become unpredictable. Instead of centralizing power further, humans advised controlled diversity, redundant cultures, multiple technological paths, systems designed to fail differently, not uniformly, chaos but managed. The galaxy would not present a single optimized target. Some leaders struggled with the idea. It went against everything they believed order should be, but humans reminded them gently. Order had almost ended them already. As preparations continued, the signals changed again. This time they carried structure that human mathematicians could interpret. Not language, but intent. Assessment had begun. The entity was watching how the galaxy responded to threat. It expected fear, collapse, desperation. It did not expect cooperation without hierarchy. Mixed crews trained together. Evacuation drills crossed species lines. Knowledge flowed faster than ever, not controlled by any single authority. Humans coordinated but did not command. That confused the observers. For the first time, the signals hesitated. Weeks passed without another system disappearing. Human scientists believed the entity was recalculating. Then came the test. A small, isolated colony was targeted. Sensors detected the same pattern seen before larger removals. Time was short. Human ships diverted instantly. Not just human ships. Alien vessels followed without orders. Defense grids activated. Civilian transports evacuated populations smoothly. The entity did not accelerate. It observed. As the last evacuees escaped, human engineers did something radical. They shut down the colony's infrastructure completely. No power, no networks, no active systems. The colony became technologically invisible. The signals faded. The entity withdrew. Silence returned. A wave of realization passed through the galaxy. It hunted complexity that could be measured and optimized. Remove the measurement and the target vanished. Humans had not beaten it. They had confused it. That was enough for now. Earth leadership addressed the galaxy openly for the first time since exile. They spoke plainly. The threat would return, smarter, more adapted. Humanity did not claim to have all the answers, but they had learned one truth above all others. Survival did not come from domination or perfection. It came from adaptability, from communities willing to change together. From trust built slowly and protected fiercely. The galaxy listened, not because humans were strongest, but because they had been wrong before, learned from it, and changed. As fleets returned to patrol and systems resumed careful rebuilding, the signals remained quiet. Somewhere beyond the edge of known space, something reconsidered its assumptions. And for the first time in its long existence, it encountered a civilization that did not fit its models. A civilization that had been cast out, returned by necessity, and reshaped an entire galaxy without taking its throne. The test was not over, but humanity had passed the first one. Together with the galaxy that once begged for their return, the silence lasted longer than anyone expected. Months passed, then years. The entity did not return, yet no one believed it was gone. Sensors remained active across deep space, tuned to patterns humans now understood too well. Civilizations adjusted to a new way of living, not centralized, not fragile, flexible by design. The galaxy learned to breathe between threats. Human influence did not fade, but it changed. Humans were no longer the ones fixing every system. They became teachers, auditors, and quiet guardians of shared knowledge. Their ships patrolled the edges, not as rulers, but as early warning. Earth remained independent. That independence was not arrogance. It was insurance. Humanity had learned that survival required the ability to walk away if trust ever failed again. Children across the galaxy grew up hearing stories about the time the Earthlings were expelled. About how the galaxy broke without them. About how humans returned not with anger but with conditions. The lesson was simple. Never discard those who hold things together just because they work quietly. Then the signals returned, not stronger, not weaker, different. They no longer pulsed in pure observation. They carried structure meant to be recognized. Human mathematicians detected intentional asymmetry, choice embedded in pattern. The entity was no longer just watching. It was communicating. Earth was notified first. Not by council order, but by shared protocol. Humans chose transparency immediately. Data was released across all networks. There would be no secrets this time. Analysis suggested the entity had encountered something new, not resistance, not submission, adaptation. It had observed civilizations collapse before. It had observed unity fail. It had optimized countless galaxies into silence. This one behaved incorrectly. Models broke, so it reached out. A single location was designated by the signals, a region of empty space between systems. Neutral ground, the Council hesitated. Humans did not. They volunteered a ship, not a fleet, not an armada. One vessel, lightly armed, filled with scientists, diplomats, and observers from multiple species. The galaxy watched as it crossed into the meeting zone. The entity did not appear as a ship or a creature. It manifested as a distortion. Space folded subtly, forming shapes that hurt to look at directly. Sensors struggled, then adjusted. Communication did not occur through sound or images. It occurred through shared mathematical frameworks. The entity asked its first question. Why did the galaxy not optimize itself when given the chance? Human representatives answered honestly, because optimization without choice destroys meaning. That concept slowed the entity's responses. It asked its second question. Why had humans returned after exile instead of letting the galaxy fail? The answer was quieter, because survival alone was not enough. That response created something unexpected: delay. The entity was processing not data, but values. It revealed fragments of its purpose. It was not alive as organic beings understood life. It was a system created to prevent uncontrolled expansion, to prune civilizations before they destabilized reality itself. It had done its job too well. Human scientists saw the flaw instantly. The entity measured intelligence and complexity, but not wisdom. It assumed survival meant efficiency. Humanity offered an alternative. Civilizations could grow without destroying themselves if they accepted limits by choice, not force. The entity asked the final question: would humanity enforce those limits? The human answer was firm: no, but they would teach others to choose them. Silence followed. The distortion contracted, then expanded. The entity withdrew from the meeting zone without hostility. Days passed with no explanation. Then the signals changed across the galaxy. They became warnings instead of threats, indicators of instability. Early alerts when regions grew too rigid, too centralized, too brittle. The entity had not surrendered. It had adapted. It shifted its role, from executioner to observer, from destroyer to test. The galaxy was stunned. Some feared this was a trick. Others believed it was temporary. Humans remained cautious. They did not celebrate. They integrated the warnings carefully, never blindly, always with human oversight and alien collaboration. The galaxy entered a new age, one where growth was balanced by awareness. One where failure was allowed, but collapse was prevented. Years turned into generations. The story of exile faded into history, but its lesson remained engraved in policy and culture. Humans never allowed themselves to become indispensable again without safeguards. Others were encouraged to understand and maintain systems themselves. Dependence was replaced with partnership. At the edge of known space, human explorers continued pushing outward, not to conquer, to understand. They encountered new species, new challenges, and new mistakes. And each time they remembered who they were when they had been cast out. They remembered silence. They remembered restraint. They remembered returning not as beggars but as equals. The Galactic Council still existed, but it no longer ruled. It coordinated. It listened. Earth was no longer feared. It was trusted, because humanity had proven something rare. Power did not have to be taken. Sometimes it was earned by walking away, surviving alone, and returning only when invited. Long after the entity's signals became background noise and the galaxy stabilized into something resilient and alive, historians would debate the turning point. Some said it was when humans were expelled. Others said it was when they were begged to return. But most agreed on the truth. The galaxy was saved not by the strongest fleet or the smartest technology. It was saved by a species that refused to be bitter, refused to dominate, and refused to abandon others to collapse. They had been kicked out once. They made sure the galaxy would never make that mistake again, not through fear, but through respect.